You're very welcome back. And in this video, I'm going to talk about why ownership changes performance. This is going to be an interesting one. Hang on. So most people think ownership is something you assign, titles, roles, lines in org charts, if you've ever seen them. It's actually not. Um, Ownership is something you have to choose. You can't make someone responsible for something they don't want to be responsible for. And by that I mean wrap their arms around it, own it, and believe that they are responsible for it living or dying. That's what the true ownership is about. If you want to know how someone views that, ask them what do they see ownership of something as. So for example, if I've talked to some athletes about the shooting, for example, and it's quite a popular one. Everyone goes, I want to go to the Olympics, right? And it's fantastically aspirational, and I'm not the person to stop that. Then when you ask them what it would mean to them if they couldn't go, you start getting different answers. Not one's related, by the way, to anything meaningful. It's usually, well, should I do something else? Well, yeah, I could do this or that, or if this was working well for me, I might do this sport. If this was working well for me, I might do that sport. But no real sense of loss in the event it didn't work. Very poignant moment here. So I rode when I was earlier on in my 20s. I rode for a rowing club in Dublin, and there was not that much YouTube and stuff like that back then when I'm talking about videos and research. Now everybody knows everything about rowing, but since then I've seen I think it's an American documentary on going for goal or something like that, and it was a coach. He pulled in. It was the Olympic American 8, and it was something that struck me. He pulled in alongside the boat, and the crew was there, and they'd just done a session of some sort, and they were recovering heads down and trying to get breath in, all that good stuff. And he pulled in alongside the 7 seat, and he just said to the 7 seat, there's one thing about you that really annoys me. And he goes, what's that, coach? And he goes, it doesn't seem to matter to you when you get beat. Everyone else in the boat takes it personally, but you never seem to take it personally. And it was one of the things that struck me, because people who don't get upset with failure, and I don't mean, by the way, throwing stuff around the room because they failed, if it doesn't affect you, did you actually ever own it? Question. This is not about titles, by the way. That doesn't give you ownership. For example, in certain companies, you'll go, oh, well, they're the top guy, they're responsible for X, Y, and Z. But do they own it? Or is it just the title? Is it just the money? Is it just the position? Is it just a lifestyle thing or whatever? A jury member in Wales last year, a really interesting one. I work on a process where when I'm in my process, nothing is allowed to affect me, nothing. And the jury member came over. I had finished shot 60, seemingly, and was going on to 61 when I get a tap on the shoulder, and she said, "You're finished." Why was that important to me? Well, I owned every element of that process I was in. I owned it to the extent that it was more important than the outcome, because I knew it was going to deliver the outcome. And it did, by the way. It gave me a personal best and also a silver medal. I'm not really gone on medals, by the way. For me, I needed to bring my system, I call it 0.0S, bring it on the road and see just how well it deals with stress. And there was enough stress that weekend, I can tell you, to test it. Um, I want to talk to you about why ownership can't be given to someone else. It can't be shared, and it can't be assumed. It can only be chosen. It's an interesting one. Titles don't create that, by the way. They don't create ownership. I don't believe that. Structure doesn't create it either. Just because one person at the top of the table, that's not ownership either. You have to decide, either you own it or you don't. And in teams, you have to decide whether you your part within that team, or you're just fulfilling a role that pays bills, um, gives you something else other than the live or die moment where it matters more than anything that you get this delivered. I actually don't think that as many teams lack talent. If I look at them, whether it's football, for example, soccer, football, um, GAA, rugby, things like that, I don't think they ever fail because there's not enough talent. I think it's diffused responsibility. Here's the thing I do believe, we don't all share success. We can have a bite of it, but we don't own it. To own the success of something, it has to mean something to you, where you're not just contributing. It's a live or die moment. I want this more than anything else. I believe if everyone is responsible, nobody's responsible. You've been in rooms before where that's happened, I know, because I've definitely been in them where someone at the top goes, how did this happen? And no one goes, I screwed up here. It's all, well, we didn't have this and we didn't have that. All smart people who could have seen that they needed this or they needed that, by the way. And I'm not trying to get on people's backs. I'm actually trying to highlight you have to own responsibility. It's not something someone else can make you, if that makes sense. Um, as I said, if everyone's responsible, no one's responsible. And it shows up, not maybe immediately, but over time, where everyone else thought, here's the thing is, I thought you were doing that. I thought that, and by the way, that can be a really handy thing for some people to get away with is, well, I thought someone else was dealing with that. Now, here's the thing, they could have asked, but they didn't, because there's an awkward situation happens there where if you talk about it, someone has to own it, and we don't want that. Ownership people step forward looking for it. You won't have to wonder how to find them. You'll find someone who actually wants it that bad. They'll step forward and go, can I have that? Then validate it based on, do they understand what it is before they take it? It can't be delegated, it's got to be chosen. And I don't believe titles are ownership too. I have a very flat structure in the team that I have. We've got a coach, obviously. There's myself, there's my loader and partner. She takes care of all my medical stuff and stuff like that as well. Everyone has a part to play and they play it to the top of their game. Everyone's contributing, but everyone owns their part in it. That's the reality, because everyone wants to be there that's there. No one's being forced into this. So that's a big plus as well. I mean, project leads, head of departments, all that good stuff. They're labels, but they're not commitment. They're really not. And there's nothing as bad as finding, we'll call it, a head of a department who doesn't want to own anything other than success, because they'll throw their team under the bus if they can't get into it and drive it first. Titles for me tell you who to ask, but it doesn't tell you who's locked in. And ownership can't be shared either. I cannot own the part that my coach has the responsibility for delivering that. He cannot own me shooting or my commitment to the program we're working through. There's a reason your name is on the bottom of a loan application or a mortgage. And it's a funny one too, because if you think about it, most people sweat when they sign the bottom line. It's not someone else's responsibility for that. And that's just in that. It's a piece of property. And yet they're living their lives where some people don't put their name on the bottom line of anything they do in life other than things like mortgages. You can't share that internal feeling of being responsible. That's an interesting one too when you think about it. And you can't make someone want to own something. I'm a believer in verbalizing things and you test it. So look someone in the eye when they say it's going to be done and go, is it? Tell me how you're going to do that. And tell me what it means to you if this doesn't work. Now you'll know pretty quick exactly who owns stuff and who doesn't, because if someone doesn't realize the severity of not delivering, would you want them to deliver or own it in the first place? I'm responsible for every element of what I'm doing in my training program. Nobody checks up. There isn't anybody. It'll show up. Here's the thing is, for me, it'll show up when I go to a range, when I enter a competition. That's when it shows up. And I could BS everybody under the sun about how hard I'm working, but the reality is, if it's not showing up on the board, it doesn't really matter, does it? And what's more important is, it has to be done now. The same level of intensity, the same level of discipline. I've given my word to do everything within my power to make sure that I show up at a point in time against the best in the world. And that can't be flipped on the day I sit on a standing, I was going to say stand on a starting line. I won't be standing anywhere. If in the wheelchair on the starting line, that's for me, that's going to be one of the defining moments where I am in no doubt I have left nothing undone to be there. I'm not there because I'm in a wheelchair. I'm there because I'm coming to take based on my process delivering, and that's the reality. I own that, and everybody who works within the team owns the part that they play. And I think it's very important that you get someone to tell you what they feel ownership is. Um, on my head, be it. That's it. There'll be no one. I will not be turning around to someone going, if you'd only done this for me or that for me, I could. Nah, it's up to me to own it. Never been someone actually to scapegoat other people, to be honest, tell them how they've let me down. If I'm not smart enough to see they're letting me down, I won't be saying that they have let me down, if that makes sense. And I control only what I execute. I'm not interested in what, and that's possibly why my process in Wales worked so well. I couldn't care what the other competitors were doing. It's of no interest to me. It's not one of those sports where I can actually impact them. Actually, I can impact them because I don't believe that they're all within their process. I think they can get affected, but I can't pull the trigger for them. I can only pull the trigger for me. So I work within my environment, within my process, locked in. Similar in projects I managed. I'm not responsible for everyone else's department. I'm responsible for mine. I'm responsible for my decisions. I'm responsible for the things I've said I own. And for me, it's total process focus. There's no messing around. Um, and there's definitely no indifference, I can tell you. When I talk to team members, like the same principle works whether it's shooting or whether it's been in project work. Um, when I've asked for people who would like to take part in a project or lead a project, you'll get a few people put their hands up, and I'll go, grand. So we'll sit down and we'll talk about it, and I'll go, so tell me what it means to you to own this project. And some of them, their eyes will open up and go, I don't understand what you mean. You're going, okay, so this is not about you, your position in the team, you being a leader. I want to know, you tell me what owning this project, the delivery of it, tell me what success looks like for you in this project. And listen to them tell you what it looks like, and then ask them to explain to you what they're going to do and what problems they see. And through that, you'll know that someone either has a good grasp or doesn't. And by the way, you have to blood people, you have to bring them along. So sometimes you'll have to go, okay, so you're not ready for this complete project. I'm going to lead it in certain respects, but you are going to own these aspects. And you give them the experience. Everyone has to get some experience somewhere. Bringing it into a shooting environment, I carried it. We had a lot of challenges, condensed timelines, some unforeseen stuff that happened. But the project itself, which was to execute my shooting process at an international, my first international to a high enough level, what it gave me was a personal best, which was massively important. The medal is a by the by. No one's really going to ring me up and go, have you got the medals? I think I have mine in the car, to be honest, which I must take it in out of it. Um, the medals are not really that important. The gold medal for me was one no one saw, which was I locked into that process so hard. I didn't know what was happening outside of it, which was I got to 60. Why would I not know 60, by the way? Well, I don't count numbers, which everyone will tell you, don't count the numbers. However, very few people don't count the numbers. But I had actually executed that where I didn't count the numbers. So for me, that was my gold medal. I can tell you what it means about me and my project to get to Los Angeles 28 is the closest uh, mission, if you want. I can verbalize it. I can tell you what it means to me, what it would mean to me, why I do what I do the way I do it, the training sessions. No one around to check. Again, no one is ever around to check, but it'll show up, and there's no avoiding it. So I'm locked into delivering. I'm just the type of person who does that, even in project work I've done before, in implementation of infrastructure and stuff. It gets done because I've told someone it's going to be done. Um, you can't share that feeling, by the way. There's responsibility. What do I mean by a feeling? You get someone to sign their name to the bottom of a contract, you'll look into their eyes and you'll see their experience in something. Uh, uh, what I will do, by the way, rather than signing a contract, because a contract could be for work where everyone's happy, go into a bank and sign for a mortgage. You'll see a face of responsibility there, because that's when you realize you are locked in for the ride, and it's going to be there a long time. By the way, there's the thing. And people have that obligation, and they know every month that that mortgage has to be paid, and they're able to hold themselves to that accountability. By the way, some can. Similarly, in the sport I'm in, I can't ask someone to understand what it is to be responsible, because they're talking about their emotion. But sorry, I can ask them, but they can't share mine. They have to own theirs. So yeah, there's when someone is locked in and they can tell you that failure would destroy them, where not being at the top of delivery, quality delivery, that's when someone has ownership. Again, it's not like a coffee. Meet you there, could be 10, 15 minutes late. Not in my world, but you can tell so many things about people about responsibility based on how they act. When you give them something small, I'll meet you. The person who's always 5 minutes late. Yeah, they could be 5 minutes early. Choice. So even that responsibility, it's a small thing, but if you see enough of these things add up, you've got someone who's going to be responsible for things. And I do say ownership can't be delegated; it has to be chosen. You cannot make someone own something. You really can't. They have to want it. They have to choose to own it. So thanks for dropping by. That was quite intense. Um, but it's the reality of it. Owning something, owning the process, owning the delivery. Yeah, it for me, that's what there's a passion there behind it. At the level I'm training at to compete at, every one of those competitors owns it. There's none of them there because it's easy. Thank you.